Hello and welcome to our live broadcast. We have been a whole month without one. Last month I was traveling in Europe. I went to Spain to do the annual Zen and Tea retreat, which was epic, the best, really the best ever. They get better and better each year as we improve the schedule, the structure of the course and the guidelines, everything. And we also just had a really beautiful group of people this year, all really committed to meditating and working hard, and it was just a really beautiful, amazing retreat. Next year is going to be a little bit different, which we'll announce very soon. I'm gonna have a co-collaborator on that one, so that should be cool. And yeah, so then after that I went to Holland and France, and then just got home recently, so that's why we had 1 month of no broadcast. If you're new to all of this, we are Global Tea Hut, and we are a beautiful monthly tea magazine. Comes with tea, beautiful, clean, organic teas, and this exciting magazine where you can get an unprecedented amount of information on all things tea. We have currently about 20 issues that are the largest English publication on their particular topic, including, since we missed 1 month, last month, September, every September we do an extended edition, so it's 100 pages instead of 60. And this was all about Wuyi Cliff Tea. This September's extended edition is one of the, it may be the issue I'm the most proud of in my whole career with Global Tea Hut these many years. I'm super, super excited about it. For 20 years I've been going and staying with the Huangs in Wuyi, and they never let me they never let us take flashes into the tea processing room because it impacts the tea. But this year there was one day where there was the rain over 2 days had been too strong, and so the raw material, the leaves that were coming in, they already knew that they weren't going to be very high quality because of the weather. So they said, okay, you can have 1 hour, exactly 1 hour to shoot some flash photography. And so we got to set up gear and take photographs. Some of these photographs are really beautiful and amazing. And we also got to translate one of the most important books, books on Wuyi Cliff Tea, parts of it, not the whole book, but parts of that book. We got to translate to English, and so that's really exciting as well. So there's some really cool information in here. It's really just an amazing, amazing issue, one of the best ever, and that's really cool. And then October's issue, also super exciting, an issue about Tetsubins, and there's not much information in English about Tetsubins, so to be able to translate so many articles about the history and evolution of Tetsubins and where they come from, and how they're made is just really, really exciting for me. I, of course, love Tetsubins. I'm using one as we speak. So both these issues are really amazing. And the tea, of course, with the September issue, I mean, come on, we would never, Wuyi Cliff Tea right now is so expensive. The Huangs so kindly and generously donated this Rou Gui tea for us to try. Just absolutely, absolutely wonderful. And then the October and November, we're doing an experiment in October and November, something we've never done before, which is like we've never done a tea of the month that somehow related to another tea of the month. So it's like a multi-month learning process. It's something that I'd like to do maybe more. If you guys like it, you can let us know if you do like it, and we could continue that, like doing kind of like series. We could do even a 5-month series technically, or a year, I mean, or 2 months. But this is a 2-month series, October and November. And what it is it's the exact same tea, a Suji Chun from Zhoushan, from a really special farm to us and to Master Tsai. Very, very early proponent. This farmer is a very early proponent of organic tea in Taiwan. It's been organic for a very long time. So we're doing the same raw material from the same harvest and everything, but processed in 2 different ways, which is really cool. So the October is processed as a red tea, and then the November is processed as a more traditional oolong. So you get to see like, you know, the exact same body, the exact same raw material. And this is really helpful in learning about tea, because when you get the exact same harvest, the exact same raw material processed in different ways, you can really learn to taste the body of the tea, what we call the cha tea, the body, and the drink past the processing. And you get to learn, you know, how to taste what qualities are from the leaf and what qualities are from the human side, the processing. So this is a really cool experiment. I hope you guys like it, and we can do some more series like this in the future. And I'd also, since it's been a couple months, there is obviously some news. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about what's going on around here. Maybe we can do a couple questions though first, and then we can hop into the news report.
Alex on the app asks, hi Buddha, what is the ideal type of Yixing clay for brewing Wuyi Yancha? I've heard that red only clay is best, and I'm wondering if higher density clay highlights the fragrance of Yancha.
So again, every time we do these live broadcasts, we always answer the questions from the app first. So if you're a Global Tea App member, you don't have to even be here for the broadcast, because these broadcasts are preserved now on YouTube and on Facebook. So you could put your question and it will be answered, then you could watch it later, or you maybe don't worry you'll forget your question, you can just put it there in the app. So this question is about which type of Yixing clay is best for Yancha. And the answer to that is actually the answer to for all tea. You know, from our experiments, myself, my teacher, his teacher, we find that Zisa is the best for all tea, not just for a particular type of tea. Hongni and Duani are missing many of the minerals that are in Zisa. And you can see there's a 10x photo of the two in the extended edition that was on Yixing, which is 2017 extended edition, September. That Yixing issue in there, there's photos of 10x magnification of Hongni and Zisa, and you can actually really clearly see all the minerals and elements that are not there in the Hongni. The popularity of Hongni, I believe, is really more to do with its beauty, because it's quite beautiful, and so it very quickly also was crafted into more elegant, refined kind of pots right from the beginning because of its beauty. But because of where it comes from, deeper down, and the lack of minerals and things, it doesn't hold heat the same. It doesn't have the same kind of capillary action. It's not as porous. It doesn't breathe as much. And so, you know, we've done experiments even here in the center. We have there's a type of Hongni that it's kind of like Da Hong Pao. We write a lot about Da Hong Pao in this, and how the word Da Hong Pao has now become generic. And most people in China actually refer to all cliff tea as Da Hong Pao. They don't say Yancha, they'll say Da Hong Pao. Most just, you know, mainstream non-tea loving people who, you know, who just drink tea casually call it Da Hong Pao. So there's a type of Hongni called Duni, which can be, you know, similarly generic. So there was a particular batch of Hongni that in the Qianlong time. Qianlong is the 18th century. He ruled for a long time, so most of the 18th century is Qianlong. And that it's a color, they say the color of pig's liver. It's a real kind of rich red. And it was very popular because it was very, very beautiful. But the reason that term can be misleading is because then, due to the popularity of that particular type of clay, then in the 19th century, made another like zuni, and then in the Republic they made another zuni, and nowadays they have zuni, which is often just means they've added iron oxide, which to the clay, so it's not even a natural thing anymore. So which of those is zuni, I don't know, but we have we have pots that are the original Qianlong zuni here, and our experiments are that like even that the original zuni, which is you could argue is the one of the best of the Hongni. There's another thing that's you could translate as pure Hongni that was come from the Cultural Revolution era, 60s and 70s. They're very rare, but that type of Hongni is a very, we have one here, is actually better than even the Qianlong zuni. That type of pure Hongni is close to Zisa as Hongni can get in our experience. But my point is that Qianlong zuni pot, it doesn't make as nice of tea even as modern Zisa, like Master Zhou or Chan's modern Zisa will make better tea than those things. They're more akin to porcelain. They don't hold heat. They tend to have less. We have these laser thermometers, so we can do a lot of experiments, and you can inside and outside see the capillary action, the way that it holds heat, the deficiencies in minerals, et cetera, et cetera. So my answer would be Zisa for all tea.
So we have a question from Mike. He wants to know that after a tea session we're using Tetsubin, there's a charcoal ash on the outside of the kettle. He wants to know whether you should clean that off.
So someone's asking when using a Tetsubin if there's ash on it from using charcoal, do you clean that off? I think that's really just personal. That should, once it cools down, a Tetsubin we always of course need to dry out every time we use it. We don't leave water in it ever, so we dry it out. Once it cools down, you could probably just wipe the ash off very easily. We tend to not just leave it with ours. I don't know how ash is getting on it. I don't know if you mean just that like charcoal marks or whatever, but technically the Tetsubin should have space between the charcoal and the Tetsubin, so that there shouldn't be so much ash on the bottom of it. But I don't see any practical reason. Certainly if there's a lot of ash on the bottom of our Tetsubin, we would clean it off. But I don't. Let me look. I don't see. There's like marks from burning and things, but we tend to just leave it as it is. And but our Tetsubins do get cleaned regularly, like every few months. We clean them to prevent rusting, etc.
Okay. Jingren is asking, Master Lin usually says for brewing Yancha that less is more when it comes to how much leaves to put in the pot. Is this the same for brewing Xiaozhong, Lapsang Shushong, or would you put more leaves in the pot than with the Yancha?
For Xiaozhong? For Xiaozhong is a red tea. The amount of leaves in the tea, ideally you could think of this like on a sensitivity level, on a spiritual level, on a medicinal level. Ideally, ultimately, the more sensitive you become, the more you progress in tea, the less tea you should be using, right? The more the medicine heals you, the less medicine you need. And the more sensitive you become, the less you need as well. So less is more, it's kind of for all tea. However, the complication then becomes, it's like the Buddha after enlightenment, he has transcended the need for any kind of ethical framework, which we call shila in Buddhism, like moral principles that are guidelines for your life. They aren't based on right and wrong. They're just based on skillful and unskillful, wholesome and unwholesome. So the Buddha, having transcended that, he knows what a person who's enlightened is so present that they know how to respond to the moment without the need for external guidelines written on the wall or something. but they still continue to follow those guidelines because they're setting an example for their students. You know, I personally still need the external guidelines on the wall. I'm not at that level where I can be so present as to respond from my heart. Sometimes I can, and sometimes I need those principles on the outside. But if you do reach that level, a lot of them, you know, a lot of these masters will then continue to practice those principles as to set an example for others. And why that's analogous is, my point is that even if you reach a level of sensitivity in tea where like, you know, you can use a lot less tea, you need a lot less tea on a spiritual or medicinal level, and you're sensitive, so you don't need so much to be able to enjoy it, you're still gonna, a lot of your tea practice at that point is still gonna be serving tea to others. And some of those people are maybe not where you are. And so then, you know, you have to adjust the amount based on the occasion and who's there. And in our tradition, we're focused on service, so we have to think in those terms, like who, you know, who are my guests? What's their relationship to tea? Which tea am I brewing? Certainly, red teas and like age pu'er and show pu'ers are better. A liu bao can be nice brewed more strongly. Oolongs, certainly, there's a way in which the reduction is quite beautiful.
Back to Tetsubins, Tea Adventures is asking, what about rust in a Tetsubin?
I mean, so someone's asking about rust in a Tetsubin. Tetsubins are going to have some rust. There's no way around it. It's but when we find the antique ones, we only want antique Tetsubins. You should read the issue. I have an article in here. The iron that they're using nowadays is not the same iron as they used pre-war, which we call pig iron. It's a completely different iron source from different things, and has a very different effect on water and on tea. So we want those antique ones, but we try to find antique ones that didn't rust out. So they didn't sit for a long time without use. You want ones that were in more consistent use are the ideal Tetsubins to purchase. And yeah, to prevent rust, you should always dry it out after you're done and wrap it up when you're not using it. So keep it wrapped, and we keep all our Tetsubins wrapped up in cloths. Keep it wrapped up. That'll help prevent rust. And then, of course, you need to scour it and clean it occasionally. Scour if it's rusty. But if you're using it actively and you're keeping it wrapped up and you're drying it out, you won't need to scour it. You'll just need to clean it a little bit once, a few times a year. And that will also, a lot of that will depend also on where you live and what the humidity is, etc. But some rust is going to be there. In the Ming and even Qing dynasty, a lot of tea authors believe that some iron in the tea was good for the taste and for the mouthfeel. In fact, I've seen some of the daimyo, the lords in Japan, were wealthy enough to have so the kettle for whiskey doesn't have a spout. It's called a kama, right? And it's like a cauldron, basically. And some of the daimyo were wealthy enough to have gold or even silver kamas. We actually have a silver kama here. And sometimes you can see they have silver kamas, and then inside on the bottom, kind of like clipped in, they have pieces of pig iron. So even though they had a silver kama, which suited their chashi or where they were, they would put iron inside of it because they felt so strongly that there needed to be iron in the water. So maybe now we can share some news as well about what's going on. I'm sure a lot of you are curious about what's going on. It won't take long. And then we can get back to the questions. So this can be the news interlude. Dung, 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 dung. And the reporter stuff comes out. This has been obviously one of the most crazy years of my life, of our lives. things are, finding out that we're losing T-Stage Hut, we have to move. Most of you know this, right? Our landlord is passing away, and this is the house he was born in, and his daughter. We have actually a 5-year lease, so they couldn't really kick us out, but the daughter came crying, and they've been very kind to us. We've been here more than 10 years, and we kind of love them, and it just feels like such an honor that we have done some meditation and spiritual work here to kind of create a place for him to leave this earth. And it's part of the ethnicity of Miaoli, where we live, is Hakka. And the Hakka people, this is just part of their culture, that they want to go to where they were born, their like Laojia, their old home, their family home, to pass away. And so when that happened, there was already a schedule for this year for 6 months worth of courses for the second half of this year. And obviously that needed to be canceled. And canceling that, was really scary and hard, not just for the loss of courses for you guys, but also for us, because for me personally, even, I work very, very hard. I travel for like 3 weeks usually and teach courses, and then I come home, and then I'm home for a month, and then I travel again for a month, and then I'm home for a month, and that's usually like 6 months of travel a year. And that means that during that month that I'm home, I got to get 2 magazines done so that I can then travel again. And so this is all just this tremendous amount of work, and it's very stressful. And I'd be lying if I said my ego was always like in a state of joy. It's obviously sometimes stressful, and I get stressed out. But having guests here and having these 10-day courses here is kind of the fuel that runs the motor of all of our work here. It's the inspiration that, there's just so much inspiration in having these 10-day courses. First of all, the 10-day courses, then the schedule of the 10-day courses is rigorous, and we get into that schedule, and that retreat schedule, that's Zen. It wears down the ego and opens up the mind, and all the dualistic thinking starts to leave. And then you see the changes in the lives of the people who are coming here for these courses, and you feel like, oh, all this work that I'm doing on the magazines, all this work that I'm doing is so worth it. It's just such a willing and wonderful sacrifice, even when it's stressful, because you have this like source of inspiration that you're just drinking. And the loss of that was really scary. So like, immediately we kind of freaked out and just like, okay, went into like hyper fundraising mode, and a lot of fundraising and traveling to fundraise and all that on top of all the other work to try to get Light Meets Life like by the end of the year, so we can move directly from here to Light Meets Life. And then, a couple months ago, it just kind of slowly set in that like, it's just tea. Tea teaches us what? That like things can't happen when you're rushing around. Tea is about slowing down. That's what Cha Dao is. And when we slow down and be more present and relax and let the moment be what it is, things actually start to happen, and things start to unfold in the way that they should unfold, and instead of us rushing around and trying to make this world look like what we want it to look like. This is the human dilemma, right? I mean, this is what's causing our environmental problems as well, is that we're trying to do. And even our attempts to fix the environment, whether it be through protests or laws or whatever, not that all that needs to stop, but that's just more doing. Actually, there's a Zen teacher that said all of humanity's problems as individuals and as species all stems from our inability to sit and do nothing. If you have a parking lot and you want to turn it into a forest, what do? The answer is nothing. You just let it be, and it becomes a forest on its own. You just stop meddling, in other words, stop the building. It's our desire, it's our constant desire to do that creates problems. And so tea is very much about surrendering the impulse to do and learning to just be and rest. And so, tea started to speak, and I just started to realize like we need to stop rushing, and we need to allow this to unfold, because we're building Light Meets Life for the rest of this life. And yes, it's sad and a little bit scary to not have these 10-day courses going on and have them be canceled indefinitely. But it's also necessary that this next step happen in the best possible way, and that Light Meets Life be everything that it can be, not just for us, because we hope to hand this down to future generations as well. So the center, I hope, is still here serving Chajin worldwide, and is still free even hundreds of years after you and I are gone. And so we're building something big, and that's going to have a long life, I hope. And so we need to allow it to unfold in the way that it needs to unfold, and stop rushing around and stop trying to force it, which is just going to cause mistakes and cause us to maybe land somewhere that we don't belong, and cause us to maybe not find the best possible location for Light Meets Life, or whatever, for whatever to happen. So I just realized that we need to chill out. We need to let this happen in the way that it wants to happen, and in the speed that it needs to happen, and most importantly, to let it happen properly, and let it be correct and right. And as soon as that relaxation happened, and just kind of full relaxation and stopping of scrambling, then also kind of through that door entered a little bit of vulnerability, and that kind of pried that door open, and then a lot of vulnerability entered for me personally, because the last 7 years, as I just told you, I've traveled 6 months a year. And traveling 6 months a year doesn't just mean traveling 6 months a year for me. It means traveling, and these trips aren't like vacations. Obviously, they're, I'm going to teach, so teaching like that, and then coming home and having 2 issues to do, and then 2 10-day courses here, and scrambling, and then leaving again, and like that. All of that's been just a wonderful honor and a beauty, and one of the greatest joys of my life. But as soon as I relaxed into the process of allowing Light Meets Life to happen in its own pace, this vulnerability came in, and I, for the first time, really began to realize that I'm very tired and I'm burnt, and that Light Meets Life is going to be a huge amount of work and a huge step forward. It's going to require a lot of effort from myself and from everybody to build this big center and run it and maintain it. And so I realized that, not only do we need this to allow this to happen in its own pace, but I need to catch my breath. I need to breathe. I need to take a pause. And so I feel like that's why all of this happened. And as soon as I thought of that, a part of me, of course, felt like I was letting everybody down, letting you guys down, letting people here down. And we had the old student course, and I came and shared it with the old students that I was going to take some time and kind of retreat. I thought, I kind of told them with my head down, but actually they responded with a lot of positivity and support and said, yes, we obviously want this for you. We've known it for a long time that you're too tired. So that's kind of what happens. And then immediately after that decision was made, a beautiful property showed up for us. So we've closed Morning Dew. Those of you that have been here knew that we have 3 properties. We have the center TCH out, we have our office where Global Tiat is produced and all the distributed around the world. And then we had Morning Dew, which is where volunteers live, and it was a little space. So we've closed Morning Dew completely. So now we just have the office in the center, and the center is closing as well. And then we found a little house that's kind of a temporary way station, and it showed up just immediately, and it's new and beautiful, has a garden and a fish pond so we can keep our fish and turtles. It's a really lovely spot. It's not a center, obviously, but it's a little way station for us to inhabit in the interim while Light Meets Life starts moving forward. So my aim is for at least this next year to retreat. I'd like to sit a maybe 20-30 day retreat for myself. There's a lot of practices in my life that I have set aside, sacrificed for the magazine and for this center and for all of you, that I'd like to have back in my life, like my martial arts practice. Exercise in particular, it's hard for me. Because the first 2 weeks of exercise is always really strenuous and hard, and then you get to a place where you actually love doing it every day. and that's the point at which then I leave and then go somewhere for a few weeks and then come back and have to start all over. So basically this next year I'm going to be in retreat. We're going to have no guests. I'm going to meditate and work on some books. I have 17 unfinished books that are all in various states of completion. Some of them are 70% or 80% done. I hope to finish some of those. So yeah, and practice and just catch a breath before we make this next outward movement into something bigger, into Light Meets Life. And we have a beautiful space for all this to happen in. This new house is quite nice and perfect for all of this. So it's really much needed retreat and rest for a little while. So we're moving. We're in the process of moving. We've already started moving. We'll be out of the center by the end of the year. It's a little sad. Sometimes Sean and I were standing the other day just looking at something, and Sean was like, "Should I move this?" And I was like, "Yes, we have to move everything." But why he was asking is because like it just felt so surreal that there would be a gap where that thing used to be. And myself personally, I've been looking around and seeing like little functional things that it took us years to figure out. Like, oh, there's this wood here for the kettles, and it took us years to figure out that was needed. And you wonder, like, where's that piece of wood going to wind up, and where, and how do we incorporate that functionality into Light Meets Life when we build it and stuff. And so there's a little sadness. There's also an excitement to have this period of rest. And next year there's a retreat in Esalen in February, and then the Spain retreat, of course, in October. And that's literally all I'm going to do for the next year. So that's where we stand. And then the amazing thing is that after all that was decided and started to flow, some new development started to happen with Light Meets Life as well, which I can't really get into right now. But once those things start to flow and unravel and become what they are meant to be, we will make announcements. But Light Meets Life is moving, actually. And actually, of course, it's thus. These are things that obviously, like most things, you have these lessons and you know them, but you have to like experientially come against them in your life over and over until they become part of your being. So, all these things I could have articulated without this process that we've gone through in the last 6 months. Like, don't rush and, be T-spirit and da-da-da. But obviously, we needed to pass through it to learn it once again. Sometimes you got to put your hand in the fire to learn, as they say. And so Light Meets Life is moving forward, and we're just going to have a pause to breathe and catch our breath, and then we'll get real busy, and there'll be announcements very soon in the next few months about what that's going to look like. As far as Global Tiat goes, so that we have been just having tons of discussions with tons of people about what to do about it, because obviously the center is closing, and we're going to have this period of rest, and so the amount of people here is going to decrease, so there's not going to be as much support or help. And so and since we're trying to rest, and the idea is to rest, and there's less people helping, what do we do with Global Tiat? We tossed around tons and tons of ideas. In the end, what we've come up with is to change as little as possible. We discussed radical changes, including having no magazine and just having it be a Tea of the Month club. And but we scrapped all that, and the idea is to change as little as possible. So what we're going to experiment with and see for the first at least few months in 2020. So starting in January, we're just going to decrease the size of the magazine. And I think that for most people, this isn't even going to be an issue. A lot of people tell me that they struggle to keep up with the magazines, and they struggle to read 60 pages a month, that it's a little bit too long. So we're just going to decrease the length of the magazine, and so it'll be a bit shorter for 2020. Who knows, in the future we could extend it again when there's more help and more love and support here. But for this year, we're just going to decrease the size of the magazine. Same great teas, same types of information, continue translating, and all the same things you love about Global Tiat, just a little bit smaller scale. Probably somewhere around half. So now we're at like 65 pages. It would be 30 some pages, and I think that's plenty for a month. Also, there's just thousands of pages of back issues So there's plenty for everybody to read. The last thing I'll say is that through this time of rest, through this period of transition, your support is needed more than ever, and your love and kindness, as opposed to like a feeling that you're being neglected or that content's being deprived from you. Understand that in the long term, this rest is allowing us to create more content over the course of a lifetime. So it's just a short-term decrease for a long-term gain, and that this rest allows us to, is allowing us also to build this permanent center that is for all of us around the world. And so that's where things stand. If anybody has any questions about that, that'd be cool, or we can move on and just ask other questions as well.
Kind of related, Zach Go asks, might there be a Global THAT Annual trip in 2020?
So somebody asking about the Global THAT trip. We're still not sure. We will decide by December. There's a chance no. That this year would be just also part of the rest would be a rest from that. But we will decide by the end of the year. I'm not 100% certain about that. I'm leaning towards no. I'm leaning towards taking a rest. Again, only having those 2 trips where I go to Esalen in February and the Spain retreat in September, October. So that's what I'm leaning towards, but it's possible. It's possible. We've been discussing Sichuan as a location, which is one of the most gorgeous places on earth. Tetsubin substitutes. There's a question about like what could, when you can't get an antique Tetsubin. They're also like all antiques, right? I said this in my article in the issue. I would say it again now. Be cautious, right? Of course, there are tons of fakes and problems in that market, like all antique markets. If you don't know what you're doing, you have to be a little careful. So if you can't afford an antique Tetsubin, or the one's not available, is there an alternative? Obviously, clay kettles are wonderful, and actually good clay kettles have a high percentage of iron, like Yixing. Yixing is also like almost 10% iron. And I was talking with Petr Novak. I just saw him in Spain. He was at the retreat, and some of his kettles, he has one particular clay that has also like 10% iron. So those kinds of clay kettles that have really strong iron. Our clay kettles also have a lot of iron, not 10%, but I think it's 7, 8. And so there's good clay kettles always will have some high concentration of iron, and that will give you some of that same effect.
Another question from Jing Gran about cleaning Tetsubins. How to clean the Tetsubin when it developed a little bit too much calcium deposit?
Yeah, you had to scour it completely. Tetsubins, the antique Tetsubins are even more porous than Yixing. And so you have to be really careful what water you put in them. I mean, that kind of hard water, scaling. There's some scaling is good. We call it rabbit's fur. It's like a white scaling. It depends on the, what the minerals are in that scaling. So if some types are okay. Calcium, I don't think so. It will make the water hard and gritty, rough.
So Gunan would like to know when the Rou Gui collection is coming out.
The what?
The Rou Gui collection.
Oh yeah, did we mention that in the magazine? We must have. Yeah, I think it's in the Wuyi issue. Yeah, I think it was in the letter from the editor or in the back. Or maybe he just heard it from a rumor. Yeah, we do. We have a really cool. So we have now the box with the 4 big names, with the Beidou Yihao and Tailo Han and Shui Jingui and Bai Jiguan, the 4 like 25-gram canisters of handmade cliff tea. And so we're making a new set that's really cool. It's 4 Rou Guis of different ages. So like a 2-year, 5-year, 7-year, and a 10-year Rou Gui, all from the Huangs, all handmade. And so you get to taste like the ages of a Yancha. And we'll be coming out with that soon. The teas are already here. We just are Need to like photograph it and put it all together and make stickers and all that kind of stuff. It'll be in the next few months for sure. Yeah.
Is water from Tetsubins good for any kind of tea or better for some categories of tea?
Water from Tetsubins is generally good for darker teas. That's all covered in my article in the October issue, on the page 37. Tetsubins, antique Tetsubins. This is why also I don't recommend usually buying an antique Tetsubin online, because every one of them has like a unique flavor. They kind of all taste different. Depending on, because they're all unique, one of a kind. The sandcast ones, it's one mold, one kettle. And the technique of making the iron in those days wasn't like as consistent as nowadays. That's part of the charm of them. And so they're all kind of different. And then you have the kind, what kind of water was used in them over these many years. What was done with them also influences that. So they all kind of have a flavor. And so when you have like dark teas, like aged pu'er, show pu'er, these kinds of things, these are already like rich, complex teas. So the addition of another flavor from the Tetsubin is just an added joy. It's like a curry. It's got lots of different spices in it. So a little bit of cumin or something in there is just adding more to, there's already like 25 kinds of spices. The 26th one is great. But then when you get into like lighter teas, any kind of green, white teas or yellow teas or lightly oxidized oolongs or things like this, that those flavors can overpower, obviously. So you wouldn't want to put spice in just like a plain, something plain, you know. Like, so the idea is you know, that it's adding complexity to already rich and complex teas. It's also preserves heat very well, and the heat from it tends to be penetrating and deep. And so it's good to get into the like broken down cells of aged teas. To get in deeper, you'll get more out of your teas because the heat is stronger. It can go deeper.
What about using Tetsubins on different heat sources? Are there any that are not recommended?
Tetsubin and heat sources, yeah, I mean, this also covered in there quite a bit. The main thing is not to use them on gas. They can survive gas sometimes, but often they will crack. You're endangering your Tetsubin if you put it on gas flame. Other than that, they're fine on infrared and charcoal, alcohol, those kinds of things. We tend to just use infrared and charcoal with our Tetsubins. If you guys have any, as we go through this shift and things, if you have any questions or advice or, or criticism even, then please feel free to contact us. And your support during this time of change is really absolutely necessary. There will be content. We'll continue to try to do these broadcasts. We'll make some videos. The magazine will still be there. As I said, I'm going to try to finish some of the books that I'm working on as well. So there will be content throughout this year. And there will be news about Light Meets Life. It is moving, so it's not just in a state of stasis. All that was, it's not that we've stopped or quit. It's just like we had to leave this house by December, and finding Light Meets Life by that time was unrealistic. And so we need a way station. And once we move to that way station, then also this allows us to catch our breath and wait and pause and take care of ourselves and cultivate ourselves as we, as we move forward into this new beautiful chapter of this unfolding. And I hope that you're all in full support of that. The only other news that I would like to share is also, this will probably apply to some of you, the 15th of next month, November 15th, I'm actually going to Los Angeles, and we'll be doing a bunch of events at IM. This center in the west side of LA, in Playa del Rey. So if you're in the California area or you can make it over to California, the IM website, AYAM website, we can link to it in Facebook. The IM website will very soon have all the events up, and you'll be able to sign up. They're waiting till after, because right now there's some fires in Los Angeles, so everybody please say some prayers for all the people in Los Angeles, and may they be safe and their property hopefully not too much damaged, and that these fires also help wake us up as a species and recognize our influence we're having on the environment. So very soon though, they'll have those events, and if you're in the States and you'd like to come, I'd love to see you and share some tea and hugs and good times. It's going to be amazing. This is the last trip I'll be making for a while, so it's also maybe the last chance for us to get together for a little bit, unless you're going to come to Esalen in February, or Spain next year in October. Those are kind of the only things that are really going to happen over the next year. Otherwise, I'll be meditating, praying for you, and drinking lots of tea, and hopefully getting in shape and doing some martial arts too. Thank you guys for coming and sitting and sharing some tea. Doesn't look like we have any final questions. We were a little late in starting. Sorry, we're setting up. We're trying to. This time we're going to put this up on YouTube as well. So from now on, we're going to try to put these broadcasts up on YouTube afterwards, so they're kind of there for people to watch after the fact if you weren't able to make it to the live one. Yeah. Love you guys. Hope to see some of you in LA soon. And you stay tuned. We'll have another broadcast next month, and there'll be more and more announcements coming, and Light Meets Life is happening. Continue to help us spread the word about the fundraiser and to share about it, and also about Global Tihat. Sign up for Global Tihat. It's a great way to support us and continue to receive the magazine, and as we move forward into a whole new chapter of our lives. Love you guys.